Welcome, welcome to another week of learning relationship skills. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get straight into it. I see you guys here. Armand, I'm going to put you as a request to speak. Odin, amazing to see you this week. Beautiful. So let's have a quick recap of last week's topic, just to refresh our memory. So last week's topic was knowing what you want. And it was really important because it can be helpful in the dating phase. It can be helpful when you're in a relationship. So when you're in the dating phase, it's really helpful to write down your preferences and your deal breakers. And I've collected a thorough list of all the things you can consider. And if you want access to that list, just message me and I'm more than happy to just copy paste and share that with you. Because once you know your preferences, your brain can naturally help you filter and find people that match that. And you also know when to fight for someone, because if they are really great and you can see that they have so many of the qualities that you want, you know that they're not going to be perfect. So there's going to be some things that are wrong, or some obstacles in the way. And you really need to be able to fight for it and know that it's worth fighting for. So keep that in mind for knowing what you want in a partner. And then if you're in a relationship, it's so important when you're upset, even a little bit upset, to know what you want, so you can ask for it. And it's really good to be able to quickly say to your partner what is even upsetting you a little bit or annoying you, just so it doesn't build up and cause all sorts of other damage that will come down later in the line. So short-term, uncomfortability for long-term happiness. And it really helps. So when you're upset, it's good to communicate why you're upset, but it's even better if you can figure out what you want, because that's what the thing that's going to help the situation not happen again. Being very specific with the thing that you want, even down to the time frame, so then they can know exactly what it is and not let you down again, and your expectations can match reality. And at any point at all, if you guys have a question or a story or a comment or anything, it's always more than welcome. We always love it when people speak up and communicate. So this is a space where, we're just here trying to give you guys as much value as possible with relationship skills. That's my expertise. That's my background. It's what I've got my master's in. So take advantage of this. It's absolutely free. If you guys want to get more people in the room, in the bottom right-hand corner, if we click the like button and retweet button, we can get more people learning these relationship skills. All right, now let's go to today's topic: when to be vulnerable. So this is something that not many of us talk about, and we're definitely not taught about this in school. So it's a whole new territory for most people, and especially men. It's very kind of ingrained into society more than women, that men need to be strong, never shed a tear, rub some dirt in it, be able to handle anything that gets thrown at them, and women in different ways. So it's an important one to unpack. Armand, I see your hand.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused about the topic. It's when you should be vulnerable. I thought, the prevailing knowledge was, hey, you want to be vulnerable as often as possible. Are there times that you would recommend not being vulnerable?
Great question. So you're just jumping the gun to the skill part of today's session. Amazing. So being vulnerable is a good thing, and so I'll explain this in a little more detail. I'll go. I'm just thinking I had a whole thing structured out. Okay. I will answer your question, and I will do my best to. I'll actually write it down so I make sure I don't forget. Armand's question for when it's not a good time. Okay. All right, beautiful. So I wanted to first ask you guys, what does feeling vulnerable mean? So have a think about it, because everyone can have a different definition for what this means to them. Armand, are you open to? Oh, I see a hand. Beautiful.
Yeah, I guess I was actually about to ask, and as I was thinking, I was like, what does it even mean to be
Yeah.
vulnerable? Um, so the first thing that comes to my mind, I guess, is sharing. I don't know, but you're sharing something that maybe you're afraid is going to result in a conflict, or that the other person may judge you for. For example, say I wanted something from my partner, like they chew really loud, and man, like I just want them to stop. I guess telling them that, hey, it really bothers you that they do that, is being vulnerable. Um, I think also like talking about your past, like you could, I guess there are different levels. Hey, it really bothers me when you do that. Hey, I used to have an ex who would chew gum like that, and every time you chew gum like that, it reminds me of her. That's, I guess, an additional level. But I also know when you share stuff, you may not necessarily feel vulnerable, especially even if it's something personal, if it's something you've shared a lot with a lot of people. Uh, so I don't know, I guess.
Thank you for all the examples. I think all of those examples are helpful. It's generally something that feels scary that we usually don't want to share with people. That can be classed as vulnerable. The actual definition, if I look up vulnerable.
I think Odin's
Oh,
got his
Odin,
hand
I
up.
see your hand. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to clear something by the definition of being vulnerable. I mean, is it a choice to be vulnerable or not? For me, it is something that you cannot help or you cannot control. So, if you can control or if you can be vulnerable on purpose, then is it real? I mean, perhaps I am very confused about the definition of it, but so English is not my first language, so that's perhaps the reason. But always I thought of being vulnerable is something you cannot help. I mean, for some reason, when you are hurt or you are sensitively just unstable for some reason, for some outside influence, then this is vulnerability for me. Maybe I am very off the definition, but for me, it's something that you cannot help and you cannot control. So, if you can choose the time to be vulnerable, then is it real? I mean, is it just act or is it natural in that sense? So I'm confused in that way. So that's why I wanted to jump in. Sorry if I got very far from the subject.
No, no, no. This is right on the subject, and something that I learned while I was learning psychology is even with words like love, pretty much every word in the in language, I can say what does love mean to two people, and they can give two very different answers, even though if you Google it, there's one definition. So it's almost a miracle that we can communicate to one another with these words and understand what each other is saying. So that's why I'm really glad that you brought this up. And English isn't even your first language, so it's going to be even more difficult for the understanding. But it's so good that you bring it up because we want to be able to understand each other the best way we can, so we can do the most learning. So if I I actually went on Google and I typed in vulnerable, and it came up with the definition of susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. So that's actually quite similar to what you were saying, Odin. Something that you're in a position where you can be physically hurt, you can be emotionally hurt, and you gave a kind of a physical example, like you physically hurt yourself and you're vulnerable and you need help. Ideally from an ambulance if it's really bad. So that is definitely part of being vulnerable and very much how it's described on Google. Another element of it is, so let's say you have done something in the past that that before you even met your partner, and your partner asks you a question relating to if you've done something in the past that they're going to be upset with if you say yes, you did it, and that's the truth. So in that moment, you can feel quite vulnerable because the answer is something that's going to upset your partner. And are you going to choose to put yourself in a position where they can get upset at you? They can maybe yell at you, or you know have a long 3-hour discussion with you about it, and things like that. And so in that moment, that could be a vulnerable moment for you where you have to figure out, do I make the choice to tell the truth, and in the long run be better off, or in the moment save myself and not say and not be vulnerable? So there's all sorts of different situations. That's why I love it when people give examples, because so many things can fall under the umbrella of vulnerability. Another one could be, shall I go back to my questions? So I want to ask you guys, is feeling anxious or avoidant in a relationship? So, what if you're feeling jealous in a relationship, or you're not feeling that close to your partner anymore? Is it okay to feel like that in a relationship? I want you guys to put a thumbs up or a thumbs down or whatever emoji you think is good. Is it okay to feel anxious, jealous, avoidant in a relationship? No. Ooh, thumbs up, thumbs down. Mixed room, mixed room. I'd love to hear why. I'd love to hear why. Odin, do you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, sure. Because in general terms, why we are in a relationship, it's of course we cannot expect always the best of the times to share together. But if you are feeling jealous or anxious, and it's a constant state of mind, then something is wrong. Something has to be changed, or it's not the right way to feel. In times we may not control for some certain specific moments. Perhaps it's okay to feel such things, but if it's in general way and if it goes on for a larger period of time, then I don't think it's healthy to feel such emotions. Then something doesn't add up in the relationship. Perhaps if you are jealous, if you are as a personality, you might have such a strong feelings, but is it not? It's not okay to, expect from one another to feel according to your desires, etc. In that sense, I know I don't make perfect sense, but in short, if the relationship doesn't feel that good, and if it makes you feel such feelings, then it might not be the right person for you. And if it's a very stable feeling that you got from that person. In such things, I don't think there is right or wrong, because some people just, however you may feel or however it may be wrong, they just, it adds up. I mean, I might not be a very sensitive person. I might forget the birthdays, etc. And if that makes that person sad, then yes, maybe we can compromise and meet in the middle. But perhaps there is someone like me too who doesn't give much importance to the birthdays, etc. So it won't hurt that particular person that I forgot her birthday and we celebrate a few days later. And that's what I mean. If you feel anxious or jealous or unappreciated for that amount of time, then perhaps what you expect and your expectations are not mutual, are not, very well together. If I made sense, I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you for weighing in. So you actually touched on a really interesting point with the birthdays. And one of the weeks we covered love languages, and definitely, gifts are one of the love languages that they highlighted as one of the basic core ones. So absolutely, when you're with someone who doesn't feel like you need to get them a gift, or that part is not that important, you do other things that you guys appreciate. That works in perfect harmony. But it becomes complicated when someone really appreciates that and then one person doesn't. I know for Arman and I, our point of difference is acts of service. For Arman, it's the most important thing, and for me, it's the least important thing. So we get really confused by how each other feels loved, and we have to compromise, just like you said. Yeah, so that's a very good point. And in relation to the other things you said, before I weigh in, I wanted to ask Arman, did you want to weigh in? I saw you put a thumbs up for this one.
Yeah, I know I put a different thumb direction than Odin did, but I pretty much agree what he said. Kind of said it's okay to feel like that every once in a while, but if it's happening very frequently or constantly, then it's probably indicative of, a deeper problem, which, makes sense to me. Yeah, sometimes you're going to feel jealous or anxious or something like that. And, it's fine. But if it's happening all the time, then maybe that's not such a good thing.
Yep, I agree with you guys. So let's unpack some of the stuff that has been said a little further. So let's say someone is feeling jealous or anxious about something that just happened. They could be dating, they could be married, they could be at any stage in a relationship. Let's say something happened and they notice that they're feeling jealous, or they notice they're feeling anxious about something, and it's weighing on their mind. It's now, I don't know, lasted an hour. Do you think, you guys, thumbs up if you think you should, in general, obviously we don't know every single situation, but in general, do you think it's a good idea if you're feeling these feelings that, make you feel like, jealous or scared or anxious or any of these things, is it a good idea to talk to your partner about it? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Ooh, thumbs down. It's not. Okay. I'd love to know, Odin, why wouldn't you tell your partner if you were feeling any of these feelings?
Because let's say you said you feel jealous or anxious for more than an hour or so. It depends. If I feel that I might feel jealous, but deep inside I might know that I am wrong in the sense that that person didn't do something in particular to make me feel that way, and it's just my feeling. I might get jealous of her talking to a more close friend, or because of the attraction she gets from outside, and it's something I might feel because I care about her, etc. But it's not such a healthy feeling because every person might face such circumstances, and it's not a good idea to talk with her and say, "Hey, you talk with too much with your friend, or people around looked too much at you. Just you should change your clothes, etc." It's not healthy. So if it's such a case, then I should deal with these feelings myself and not, talk with her and make her feel uncomfortable, etc. But if it's something that she does and it's out of my way of life, uh, then if it continues because it's her character and she will act like that every time, then in the beginning I should make such a conversation with her to see if we can meet in the middle or something like that. That's the reason I wouldn't talk because it makes the situation even worse. I mean, we might all feel sometimes some feelings that we cannot control, but we know deep inside that it has nothing to do with that person. Also, that's the reason I went thumbs down.
Very mature answer. And in general, I would agree with you. One thing I would say to be careful of is if you notice you're feeling anxious or jealous or avoidant or any sort of feeling that can make you feel, you know, kind of vulnerable or scared or something like that, if you're aware of it, that's good. And what you do with it is, your call. If you feel like, this is something that you can handle, it's not a big deal, there's actually no foul play, then it's fine, just like you said. But just be aware of it, because let's say you're at a party and your partner is talking to another person. It almost seems like they're flirting, but maybe they're not. She's laughing, she's like touching his arm, anything that can make you feel jealous, let's say. And so you notice that you have these feelings, and okay, so you're like, okay, I'm going to be really mature about it. I know, like, she's doing nothing wrong, or whatever, that you come to the conclusion. Now let's say she comes up to you, and your plan was to leave at 9 p.m. because you had scheduled time to go and watch this movie together, for example. So that was kind of set. And now she comes up to you and she's like, oh, I just saw my other friend, I want to spend another 2 hours here, is that okay? And you say, you're very nice, and you say, okay, no worries, all right, we can stay, I love you, it's fine. And then you get home, and you were ready to go to bed because it's already so late, and now she's like, I want to watch this 2-hour movie with you just like we planned, and you have a very early morning tomorrow, you have to go to work, and this is just really getting out of hand for you. And then you have like a big reaction, and then she is like, oh, I just thought it would be nice for us to watch a movie together, and then I didn't expect you to like get really upset out of nowhere. And then you need to be aware that it's not just because she asked to watch a movie at like midnight or 1 a.m. It's because it started all the way back at the jealousy, and then it got exacerbated with staying another 2 hours, and then this was just the third thing. And so sometimes it helps when we address things quickly. So even if you once you approach her afterwards, if you were feeling jealous or she came up to you, if you say, you know I know you're just like, interacting with your friend, but like, it made me feel a little jealous, I'll be honest. And you're not expecting anything, just feeling heard, that, you're just sharing your feelings. And then, she'll, if she's handling it really well, she'll be like, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. I'll keep that in mind, or something like that. And then like the party goes on. And then but now she's aware that, okay, he's feeling a little bit uncomfortable today from the situation. And then maybe she'll be a little more considerate with the other things that happen in the day. And, it's not a build up for you because you've already let it out. This one's already out there. So from that standpoint, don't let too many things build up, because then it can come out quite strong. So, and then, you'll have to backtrack and be like, where did it even start? And why am I feeling so riled up about this thing? So, whenever you're starting, if you notice you're feeling like quite worried about something, if you're with a good partner, they can handle these feelings, and figure it out together. All right, so I know Armand's question was, I wrote it down, so when is not a good time to be vulnerable? And one of the times I would say for that is if something is very sensitive to you, very raw. If the other person is going to say, I don't know, have some sort of reaction that you can't really handle, and you're just going to break down. you know it's important to share things that are really vulnerable to you, like as in you're very sensitive about, when you can handle them, especially at the beginning of a relationship. So on the first date, if you have had, a very traumatic, I don't know, horrible situation, that you still, it makes you cry when you think about it immediately, maybe the first date isn't the best idea to, let that all out, because it might take you hours to explain it all. And then, it's very sad and you'll be crying all over the place. And, they need to be really supportive to be able to, just make you feel safe in that moment. So I would say, with some new people that you don't know if they are good at being supportive and creating a safe space for you, be careful there. And, if you're with someone, even with your partner and you're together and, that they're not good at handling, these sorts of vulnerable situations, then you need to approach it with more care and with clear direction of what you need. So I'll give you examples because that what makes more sense. So, it's important I'll just go through the skills and then we'll go through examples. So your life partner has to be able to care for you when you are feeling vulnerable. So when you share something that you're scared to share, so for example, if we go back to our story where, let's say, you see your partner, and it looks like, they're flirting with someone else, it's making you feel jealous. If you share this to them and they, just put you down and make you feel horrible for feeling jealous and, say you're crazy and, say never mention something like this again, or I hate you, or some big reaction, that's not great. There's some improvement that can be done there to handle these delicate situations with more care. It took a lot for someone to feel safe enough to tell you, hey, I'm, feeling a little bit jealous from this. I just wanted you to know how I'm feeling. It's hard to have feelings that are not positive, and to have someone be able to make a safe space for you to be able to share that, so that in the long run, you don't have these big issues that build up over time. So it's important for the life partner to be able to create that safe space whenever you're having those negative emotions, so you can share it. It can just be addressed quickly, and it's not, it's not a big conversation. It's like, okay, thank you for letting me know, or just having a quick conversation about it. So that means under that frame point that you can be vulnerable when you need to be. So if you are feeling vulnerable and you want to share it, it's okay to share it, especially if you have someone that can handle it. Now, if your partner is not able to make you feel safe when you have these negative feelings that you need to share so it doesn't build up, one thing to do is first reflect on how you're communicating. So, if I'm the jealous person that sees my partner flirting with someone and I approach them and say, how dare you, cheat on me? I'm standing right here. I'm so upset at you. I'm going to leave you right now. Like, you can walk home, something like that. And you feel like that's being vulnerable. We'll have to like unpack that together. But, that's not the kind of way that someone is going to make you feel safe. You have to, approach it softly, tell the truth, but, there's much better ways of handling this. So your approach of how you're sharing these difficult emotions is really important, because that could be a reason for why your partner is not able to create a safe space for you when you're feeling these negative emotions. So the first thing is reflect on how you're communicating when you're vulnerable. The next thing is relates to last week. So be direct with what you want from them. And what you want from them can be something as simple as, can you please, I'm going to share some feelings that are quite uncomfortable for me to share. I would really appreciate if you could listen to me for 10 minutes and then give me a tight hug and say everything's going to be okay. That's very specific, someone, and for some people, when you share negative things with them, they shut down because they don't know what to do when someone starts crying or saying how they feel, because it's usually something that's not really done so much, and it can be very confusing, and you can have the best intentions for wanting to be with them, but you don't know what to do. And for some people, just not reacting can be one of the worst reactions for them, and you have no idea that you're even doing something bad. So it really depends. So that's why it's so helpful to be specific with what you want. And usually it's something very simple. They don't need very much. They just want to feel heard. If they're, again, love languages, this is important. If, they appreciate hugs and physical touch and things like that, a hug would be perfect. If they don't appreciate, physical touch, then maybe words is something they appreciate, or maybe making them some tea and bringing them, that's acts of service. Or I'm trying to think what the other ones are. I don't know if you can get a gift in time that quickly, but there's all sorts of things you can do. Or say, would you like to I'm just going back to my own ones. I love watching TV shows and movies, with my loved ones. So, if I was sharing something like really uncomfortable that was really hard for me to express in words, and, they said, "Thanks for sharing. Do you want to watch a TV show together?" I would be so happy. I would be like, yes, that would make me happy. So it really depends, whoever you're with, you have to figure out what means a lot to them. So figure out and be very specific. If you're upset, be specific with what you need. And if they're upset, really try and get them to express what they really need in that moment. And it's totally okay to say, I don't know what to say right now. I just feel horrible that you're feeling like this. If they're expressing some sort of sad thing from their past or something terrible that they went through with their work, or they got fired and now they're feeling really embarrassed, and they are sharing it with you, and all sorts of things. So figure out what they need, and just say, I don't have the right words, but I am feeling like I really want to do something to help and I don't know what to do. So even if you don't know what to do, just say that, and that means a lot to the person that is going through something or crying. And then so after you tell them what you want, so let's say just listen to me, and you can even put a timer on your phone. If you can just listen to me for 10 minutes or however long you need, and then give me a hug and tell me everything's going to be okay, and they do that, you want to immediately reinforce that they did the right thing. So, in whatever way they appreciate. So you could always use your words and say that meant so much to me. That was the perfect response you could have had. You made me feel so safe. You made me feel so protected. Um, I feel so loved. Just give them a really tight hug back. All of these things help solidify that they did the right thing, and that is a good thing for them to do again. And then, if you have expressed to them what you need when you feel vulnerable, then you want to see growth, that they're getting better at handling these situations, and they're not just being mean when you're feeling these scary emotions that you want to share. If you're in the dating stage, like Odin said, and someone is being really terrible to you and not being there when you really need them, or if they're constantly upset about something that you just don't understand, you're not on the same page, that could be a good sign that it's not the best fit. If you're in a committed relationship and this is one of the problems that you guys experience, which is a very common one, it's good to trial and error different things to see what helps in situations where someone is vulnerable, and how can we improve the bad pattern and break it and create a new pattern and stabilize it. So that's something to keep in mind. Let me see. And yes, please acknowledge that we are not mind readers. When someone is upset, we don't know what they want, like even me, I can only guess because someone is not telling me. I have some good ideas, but I could be wrong just like anyone else, because that's why the skill of really expressing what you want is so important. I can't stress that enough. It's like a cheat sheet to life that you give your partner with what you need, and they know exactly what to do. They know the exact right answers, and then they can do that, and it can just be so much smoother that way than walking around in the dark, with a stick trying to figure out like what is the right answer. And so yeah, when your partner does something right that you appreciate, please quickly show them with a lot of love that it was correct. It was the correct decision. So then they're not in the dark, like with their stick still trying to, find the right answer. So we want to highlight when someone does something good, so then they can repeat it. It's definitely shown in so many science studies that we've done in psychology with human behavior. It's the best way to create change. Positive reinforcement is the specific term used for that, and it works best when it's immediate. So as soon as someone does something good, it's great. All right, let's jump into I do have Reddit questions, but does anyone have any questions about vulnerability, about anything I've said, any comments, any stories, anything like that? The floor is yours. I'm here to give you guys as much value as possible and teach you relationship skills. So it's a great time to ask. I'll just give you guys a moment to put your hand up if you need, or unmute.
I thought it was interesting, like, yeah, when you first maybe have those feelings or maybe jealousy or maybe feelings that you don't even know how to make sense of at the time, I think it might be like, I think I would be a bit more hesitant and I would try and explore it maybe. I think it might be good for you to properly understand why that feeling is being raised and where it's coming from, maybe before you announce it to the other person. Because then I think if you just announce it, it might make both of you feel lost. But I think it's like a detective. Like you got to build a case and like maybe like know where it's coming from, and then maybe you can be like, I've done some researching about myself and exploring, and I think this is how I feel sometimes. And then you can lay out different experiences and link it to your past or something. So yeah, I might do a bit of discovery work and investigate the emotion before I feel comfortable to share it.
Yeah, discovery work is helpful, and it's, much easier to explain why you're upset if you can come up with good reasons for it and, be very proper and be able to be like, well, this is what I need and I've thought about it and things like that. Those are ideal for sure. But just be careful that if you're trying really hard to figure out why you're feeling this way or, figure it all out before you express to your partner, you might overthink it a lot and make it bigger than what it is. And, or you might just, keep thinking about it and never feel comfortable to say it. So, if you realize that you're getting into that sort of territory, then it's just better to say it. Just say it as it is. It's better to get it out than keep it in because it shows in different ways. And your partner isn't a mind reader. So that's when they don't know that you're dealing with all this in the background. Arman, I see your hand. Weigh in here.
Yeah, it's just, kind of, I think it's good to get some idea of why you feel a certain way. But didn't you also say a while back that, like, there have been studies done where it's like, it's actually really like, sometimes people don't know why they feel certain ways.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So a lot of the times we actually don't know why we're upset about something, but we just feel upset about it. And so you can sit there for 2 hours trying to figure out why you're upset about this thing, and you're like, this is so tiny, why am I even upset? Or, this doesn't make sense, I shouldn't be upset. Or, I'm upset about this, but I don't know what I want, or I don't know how to fix it. I don't have a plan for how this could even be fixed because maybe this is my problem and not their problem, and I don't want to burden them with my problem. And it can, just, a little bit quickly get out of hand. I know for psychologists, they try and find the causation of a lot of things because that's, obviously helpful. If we understand the cause of things, then we can fix them more quickly. And so they've done so much research into this in psychology for finding the cause of people's problems. And, the more they research it, the more they realize so many reasons contribute to why we feel a certain way. It's usually very rarely one thing. It's usually something from the environment that's connected with your past, and maybe you don't even remember all the things that have happened to you that are triggering this sort of response. But there's so many factors at play. Even maybe on a certain topic, how your country reacts to it, or something you saw on TV, or something that you heard from before that really upset you that's come up now. There's just so many things that can be affecting the way you feel about something. So that's why if you notice you're upset, it's good to communicate that, because a lot of times, like even if I sit there for 2 hours, like I'm not going to be able to think of every single reason why I'm feeling this way. And a lot of the times, the reason why you feel this way doesn't matter so much. So this is a really good topic to talk about. I think it was. I think I really. This lesson really clicked for me in the craziest, in the most unexpected way. Maybe a lot of you haven't even seen this, but I'll share it. In the TV show Friends, there's a moment in the last season where, Rachel, one of the main characters, she has a baby with one of the guys that she's been in love with for a long time. He's been in love with her for a long time. And she, for some reason, said, you know, I don't want to, we are not going to get married because I don't think it's the right decision. Okay, so she made that decision. And then he was really upset, but he's like, okay, I respect your wishes. And then so he started dating other people. And they were living in the same home. So this is a terrible relationship, by the way. This is not something encouraged. But in this situation, she got really upset when she would see him going out on dates. And, you know, she didn't have any right to tell him that he's not allowed to go on dates because she refused to be with him. She broke up with him. And, when he came home one day, he came home from a date, and she was feeling really jealous and, very upset. And, for a lot of reasons that didn't make sense. And it was very clear that none of the reasons she was feeling it made sense. But she was able to communicate, I don't want you seeing other people. It makes me feel terrible and I hate it. And then the guy in the situation, his name's Ross. And he said, let me get this straight. You don't want me to be with anyone, and you don't want me to go out on dates with other women. And she's like, yes. And so that summarized how, things cannot make sense with how someone feels. But she communicated it regardless, and he just said, okay, let's not like analyze, too far into this where if he made the right decision or not. But he loved her, and he was like, okay, the reason doesn't matter, I'll do it. Anyways, the end of the whole series, they ended up being together. But when you love someone, you don't want them to be upset. And if they're telling you something that you're doing is making
Massive
them
spoiler alert, by the way.
I'm
But
sorry, I should have said that. To all those people who have watched Friends, I'm so sorry. Or have not finished Friends. Um, Yeah, so I just want you, hopefully that story will help you realize that you don't, have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have a really good reason for why you feel a certain way. If someone loves you, when you share these difficult things, they will try their best to make you feel loved, even if it doesn't make sense. And the reasons don't matter so much. What you want right now matters the most. So sometimes when Armand is trying to, I don't know, no, he's trying to say something, and he's like, I'm trying to figure out what the reason is. And I'm like, it's okay. Let's just like, what is it that you want? And I try and, make that happen, because that's the thing that matters right now. Let's say it's because of your parents that you now feel this way. Or let's say, you had a previous relationship that made you feel really bad about this way, or all sorts of things. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, what you are asking for is what matters. And if I am willing to do it or compromise matters, the reasons don't matter so much. So that's a whole lesson in itself to like even wrap your head around. It took me a while to even understand that concept. I remember when I was teaching Armand this, he was like really shocked. Armand, do you want to explain your reaction when when I was like, I don't really mind what the reason is or something?
Mer. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm very much like Mazda. When I get upset, I'm like, all right, like, let's go back through the day, through the month, through the year. Let's figure out what the heck happened and try to establish some like causation thing. I don't know if I go so far as to say that, why stuff happened or why you feel a certain way doesn't matter. But like, I don't know. At least for me, it stops me in those moments from maybe overthinking it too much, where I'm like, all right, like I may not completely not have an idea, or I may have some idea, but it's okay. I don't have to spend however long it takes and go back through, everything that's happened in the last week that's made me upset and chain them all together. Like, I can just, I don't know, be a little less analytic about it.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And I know, hopefully Armand is okay with me sharing this, but I know at the beginning of our relationship, we started off long distance, international long distance between Australia and America. And, I was very clear from the beginning that I was like, I don't, as soon as you don't see a future with me, I want you to let me know so we don't waste each other's time. And I made this point very clear, that only stay with me if you see a future with me, and I will do the same. And, this kind of freaked him out as well, because, he didn't want to waste my time. And then if he was having thoughts about like, is this relationship right or wrong for me? Then he would have these thoughts and think about it a lot, and that was a very scary thought for him, because on one hand he wanted to be with me, on the other hand he was like, what if I am wasting her time because I'm not ready to get married right now. And then so if he didn't tell me he was having these thoughts, it would have been very hard for me to understand, his reactions to things or how he's behaving. And I know those were very hard things. He was maybe feeling more anxious or more avoidant from me or the relationship because, he was really thinking about these things,
Yeah, I'm
and
like
trying to
trying to
make sure.
compute the
Yeah.
expected value of the relationship success. Just like take all the probabilities, multiply them together, weight them correctly. It's just like a mess. Anyway,
Yeah. But thank goodness, like he communicated. And so we were able to have,
thank goodness I figured out the math, and we're here now.
No, no, don't figure out the math on your own. Share your math problems with your partner. If they're amazing, they can handle it, and you're not alone with your math problems. This is the take-home message for the day. All right, so let's jump into some questions. So this week's Reddit questions, I found a 32-year-old female and a 34-year-old male. So I purposefully ignored what my husband told me he wanted for Father's Day. He's now ignoring me and won't accept my apologies. What can I do to make it up to him? So let's unpack this further. There's actually a bit of a story behind this. So me and my husband have been together for the past 9 years. We have two kids, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. For Mother's Day, all I wanted was a free day. I wanted my husband to take the kids out somewhere for the day so I can be home alone and relax. Instead, he got me and the kids tickets to have a fun day out. And it was fun. And me and the kids had a good time, but it irked me that he gave me the exact opposite of what I asked for. For Father's Day, my husband also wanted a free day so he could stay home and game all day. He games all the time with his friends. He'll get home from work, maybe spend the time between then and dinner with the kids before going up to his office to game for a few hours with his friends. Instead, I got him and the kids cards for an arcade an hour away with a ton of tokens. I gave him the cards during dinner on Saturday so he and the kids could leave early and spend all day playing with them. I got my free day and he got the kids, and the kids got a lot of memories together. He and I got into a fight when the kids went to bed. He was angry he was angry that I ignored what he wanted for Father's Day. I was angry he didn't see that he'd done the same thing to me on Mother's Day. He's now ignoring me and won't sorry. He's ignoring me since and won't accept my apologies. Okay, what is some of the thoughts that we're having with this one? Oh, welcome, Space. I see you, Space Traveler. Awesome to have you here. Welcome to the new people that have come in. We're just doing a Reddit question, and I don't know how much. Oh, Mr. Green, awesome, amazing to have you here. So, quick recap was, Mother's Day. She asked for a day to herself. She got the opposite of that, and then for Father's Day, she sent the father with the kids all day when he asked for a day alone too. And then so she got the time alone to the kids. And then he got home super mad, hasn't been talking to her since, won't accept her apologies. What do we think of this? Any reactions that we initially have that anyone wants to share before we try and unpack our topic today, vulnerability? Okay, I've got a shy bunch. That's okay. That's okay. So let's try and relate this story to our topic of vulnerability and when it's okay to be vulnerable. So it looks like, this first started with the wife on Mother's Day. She asked for a day to herself. Okay, so let's go to the exact words that were mentioned. Okay, so I wanted my husband to take the kids out somewhere for the day so I could be home alone and relax. Instead, he got me and the kids tickets to have a fun day out. Okay, so let's say you were so excited to have this fun day to yourself. You had communicated that. You're like, I'm acing it. I'm being so direct with what I want. It's going to be amazing. And then, let's say on that Mother's Day morning, you get tickets to go out with your kids, which is the opposite of what you asked for. So you're probably feeling some uncomfortable emotions and feelings at that point, and you notice them because you're starting to get upset, or you're like, how could this happen? I was so clear to my husband what I wanted. What happened? What went wrong? So let's start at that point when your expectations go down the drain and something opposite happens to it. What do you think at that point? Is there anyone that wants to weigh in what they would do in that situation? At that very first point, they notice things don't go to plan. All right, I'm going to see if my husband, let's say we were in this situation. This is fast forward us in the future with our two kids.
What are their names?
I don't know their names. One of them's called Asher. We know that. We don't know what. It's the only name we've agreed on. Okay, so let's say we have two kids. Let's say it was Father's Day first, just so it makes more sense for you. You asked for a day to yourself. I got you tickets for an amazing fun day out. What do? I give you the tickets. I'm like, surprise.
Easy. I go on the internet. I type in divorce paperwork.
Oh my God. Don't teach people bad things.
Yeah. I want to make a joke, but actually that's a really bad thing to do.
No, don't make jokes about that.
You shouldn't threaten divorce.
You should never threaten breaking up in relationships. It's the kiss of death, guys.
Even in a fake scenario.
Yeah, no, even in a fake scenario.
I know.
It's okay. You got carried away.
I did a very bad thing. I got too excited.
You got too excited.
Okay.
All right, let's try again. Take two. Surprise! Tickets.
I'd be like, wow, babes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Do you have a second?
Oh, good. Okay, yes, I do.
I like take my babes aside and be like, hey, babes.
Yep.
I tried to go with the compliment sandwich.
Very nice.
I'd be like, hey, babes, I really appreciate you getting these tickets to, for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all going to really enjoy, whatever, Six Flags.
Yeah.
I love roller coasters, even though I don't love roller coasters.
No, you don't. I do, but okay.
And I'd be like, hey, what I asked for Father's Day was actually to just have a day to myself. That's something I really want. Can we go on this? And then like another day you could give me a day to myself?
Oh, I was actually going to say, do you want me to take the kids and for you to have today for yourself just like you wanted? Oh, I'm sorry if I got that wrong.
I assume it was tickets for the whole family. That's what
it was, but I'm okay with sacrificing your ticket and losing the money for you to have your Father's Day that you wanted.
I see. So yeah, I guess both are acceptable.
Yeah, of course. So, okay, I want you as the vulnerable person in that situation. So your expectations went down the trash when I gave you the tickets with the family when you asked for a day to yourself. So do you think, was that hard for you? Do you think that would have been hard for you to communicate to me how you were feeling? Or do you think you would have gone along with it? Because I feel like a lot of people, maybe in the room or just in general, they would have gone along with it, been upset, and then like kind of showed it out. But I don't know, how hard would you think it is to tell me that?
to tell you specifically, I don't think it's that hard.
Why is it not very hard?
Because I feel like you would get it. Like there've been like, I feel like a lot of such situations, and not like tell you, like, since there's that history of
making you feel safe when you're
just
vulnerable.
making me feel safe when I'm vulnerable, I think it's okay. In like a non, yeah, if I didn't feel safe, what I would probably do is I would probably go along with it.
Okay.
Try to have the best time I could.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I'd come back,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would ask. I'd be like, "Hey, I really enjoyed the day with the kids, but like, hey, man, or woman,
Yep.
you know, this is actually the opposite of what I asked for.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, help a husband out?"
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And so that's why I want to highlight, when you feel like upset about something, even a little bit, and, in this situation, you may think, oh, I'm meant to love Father's Day with my kids. What's wrong with me? Why do I want to spend the day alone? And if you spend 3 hours thinking about that, that's not a happy time. And, you're probably going to go in circles and think, but I love my kids, but I want time to myself. Am I allowed to feel like that? Like, why am I feeling like this? Like, you can just really keep thinking about this and not get very far. So
Man, these are like a month apart. So she was like, planning this.
she was plotting.
She was plotting for like a whole month.
Yeah.
She was like, "Oh, I know what I'm gonna do."
It felt like, those TV shows where they like, one person does something and you get back at them in another crazy way, and they're like, I don't know, somehow it works out, or sometimes it doesn't, but it makes good drama TV. But that's not how the real life works. So please, if you notice something that upsets you, the quicker you address it, the smoother it's going to be, because this is a real person. I honestly didn't make up this story. Someone actually did this. So it can really get out of hand quickly. And right now, where they're at in their relationship is, one is completely ignoring the partner, and the other one is just apologizing, and the other person's not even accepting the apology. So hopefully this hasn't been going on for longer than a day, but I think it has, because this person has, now wrote it on Reddit, and it's been longer than a day. And so hopefully it's not been multiple days or a week, but who knows? So really be very careful with something so small. Something got so out of hand because it wasn't addressed quickly. So it's good to notice when you're feeling vulnerable or upset, or, some sort of negative feeling. It's okay to have those feelings, and you want to express them, so then it doesn't get out of hand like this does and get much worse over something so little. So if you noticed, in both instances where my husband Arman reenacted this role play, he told me either immediately, as soon as I got him the tickets, he said, he didn't do it in front of the kids. He said, can I have a quick moment with you? And he quickly expressed it. Or he went through with the day, and then he told me very quickly afterwards, and his ask was, well, can I have another day to myself? And those are perfectly acceptable things to ask for. And, a loving partner will understand that, this is something that they wanted. And if you want to make them feel loved, and make them feel safe for sharing this, you have to help make it happen. It's the loving thing to do for each other. And then when you ask for the same thing, your partner will do that for you. And there's that mutual respect and love that, it feels really good. And I'm sure, if Armand told me immediately after I did the wrong thing, and if I handled it really well, he would feel so grateful, because, his expectations were so high, then they dropped super low, and then now they're high again. And, he's probably like, wow, this got solved so much quicker than I anticipated. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Another one could be, so these are just quick one-liner examples from Reddit questions for this week. So one was a 30-year-old male and a 30-year-old female. And the subject line was, he tells me I have a hotness potential and thinks he's being helpful. Oh, Space Traveler, I see your hand up. I'm going to just quickly accept the request. Is there anything you'd like to say? At any point, anyone can unmute and say, we love hearing from people.
So here's hi folks. I'm a Space Traveler, a frequenter of spaces that are mental health focused. So really glad I had time to join you guys tonight. So my question is, in that scenario, the one we just talked about, when is it okay to talk about and to ask the question, kind of why? Why did you do this? What was going on behind the scenes? So what's your thoughts on kind of the timing of the feedback question? Thanks.
Yes, awesome question. So at that point as well, he didn't ask this, but a worthy question, like you mentioned, if I got him the tickets and he says, I would really appreciate the day to myself, or on another day to myself, he has every right to ask me, I I thought the other day when we spoke and I said, like, this is what I wanted. I was just curious how you ended up buying these tickets when you heard me say that. Did I not communicate directly? Kind of what happened for you? And I have no idea why I bought these tickets in her shoes, but maybe I thought that he doesn't love roller coasters, but I thought, oh my gosh, he loves roller coasters. Our kids have wanted to go to Six Flags for a while. This just seems like the perfect situation. I heard my friends did that for the previous Father's Day and they had the best time. And I just assumed that, you know, he always plays video games with his friends. This is something different. He would have really appreciated it. So I would have had a time to be able to explain why I did what I did. And then he would have more empathy to understand why I did that. And then, he can still say the thing that he would appreciate, or he could be like, all right, I can go along with it for the day. But yeah, I would still really appreciate that day to myself. How do you feel about that? Hopefully, thumbs up if I answered that question, or if there's anything I left out, please jump in. To everyone here, Space Traveler is, a very experienced clinical psychologist, who's worked in the military for a really long time. So he's got a lot of wisdom. And we're so happy to have him on the space. So thank you so much for coming on. And at any point, if you want to jump in, feel free to comment, share a story, ask a question. We love it when people do that because I think that's the best way we learn. And we try and also have some fun here because, we learn better when we have fun. So sometimes we do role plays to do that. And this space every week at 8 p.m. is to just give as much value as we can to people and teach people relationship skills. So at any point, anything you want to learn, this is the best place to request to speak, put your hand up, ask some amazing people here their thoughts and level up your relationships. So awesome. I see you'll become a speaker again. If there's anything you want to say, feel free to unmute.
Yeah, it was the joys of Twitter and moving around, going from cell phone coverage to house internet coverage, and I got rugged. So I had absolutely no idea what you were saying. So I was like, I can try to fiddle with Twitter, but I think it's better to just like leave and come back. So we've all been there. We've all experienced this delightful Twitter journey that we're on. So I guess the other thing that sits with me as I was listening to that quite incredible example, and the power of emotions is something that gets all of us. So I'll put my hand up first and say, emotions really can trip me up quickly at times because they're strong and powerful, and they're hopefully trying to teach us something, so long as we've not kind of let them fester too long. So that's another piece to pose. So I think, the idea of speaking out your emotions, and this is something I continue to try to work on because I'm sometimes a bit of an emotional oaf, and sometimes I'm on the ball, but that's why we have other people around us to educate us and to help us understand and to kind of guide us at times. We all I think need that. So I think the ability to express, though, the emotions you feel in an appropriate way, right? We don't want to be too strong with our emotions at times because that can really set people off. But I think one of the things I find when I'm sometimes talking with my spouse, who's actually a clinical psychologist as well, so good luck to my kids, right, is that I will try to express, like, if I've done something wrong, so I'll apologize. And I've got to keep in mind that sometimes those emotions, for someone else might just continue to roil and boil for a period of time, okay? So the idea that, okay, I've come to my, like, aha moment, I realized that it was my mess up, I've done something wrong, I apologize, I'm really sorry, and if I've hurt you, once again, I really want to just recognize that. And maybe I'm just a guy, or maybe it's just me, but I'm like ready to move on a little faster at times than my spouse is. And so I have to really kind of recognize that I might still get emotional kind of fury at times coming back at me, and I'm need to just not react, right? Because then we can go back into a cycle of being frustrated and angry, and then that's the time where we do sometimes express ourselves in ways that are really unhelpful. So just thought I'd throw that out. Thanks.
Thank you. So much wisdom there. So much wisdom there. Thank you for sharing. And you touched on a point that we've highlighted in previous weeks that I just want to bring up again for anyone who wasn't there for that week. So taking turns being upset really helps de-escalate problems. So when two people are upset at once, it's really hard to resolve conflict. And Space Traveler was highlighting that a little bit in the story he told. So, if you notice who's upset first, who expresses verbally that they're upset first, find out, hear them out, find out what they want, try and give them that or give them a compromise of that. Our very instinctual reaction when someone is, expressing something that's, upsetting, at us specifically, humans very naturally get defensive and attack the other person back and say, well, I'm upset at this about you. And now we have two people upset, and the first person doesn't feel like their feelings were heard because now you're saying I'm upset. And so it can just very easily get out of hand and, not get resolved for a lot of reasons. So one helpful trick to remember is to figure out who got upset first, try and figure that one out first before you bring a whole new issue from the other person into the mix. So yep, just a quick tip there before we jump into the next one. So let's say, so this Reddit question is a 30-year-old male and a 30-year-old female, and the subject line, they didn't have any more to the story besides the subject line. It said, he tells me I have hotness potential and thinks he's being helpful. So this is something that relates to, physical attractiveness. The man in this situation is, thinks he's doing a good thing by, saying, oh, you have hotness potential. And, there's definitely more to this story that we don't know. And to the girl, this is a very negative comment that she's hearing, because maybe she feels like she's not good enough. She doesn't look well enough. And, is a disappointment maybe to her partner. And she doesn't feel attractive to her partner potentially. So she's having, all these uncomfortable feelings in the situation. So she could feel vulnerable about her looks, about, her physical appearance, all sorts of things. So in this situation, let's say your partner made a comment about your appearance, and they're using this phrase hotness potential, and this phrase really upsets you when you hear it, or just annoys you or frustrates you. What do you think? Should you say something and be vulnerable that he might be saying it jokingly to you, and then you're suddenly feeling very serious emotions? Should you say something and be vulnerable, or should you hold it in? What do you guys think? A thumbs up for holding it in. Thumbs up for saying something. Thumbs up. Yes. Happy to see that. Great job, guys. So yes, you want to say it because, he probably doesn't know what this phrase is making you feel. And so he's likely going to say it again, especially if you laugh it off and be like, haha, like blah, blah, blah. And, they don't know that that's something that you experience negative emotions with. So they are very likely to say it again. So if you have that conversation, they know that, that this isn't something that you appreciate, and then they understand you better as a person if you can communicate that. So again, don't assume people can read your mind when you're upset about something, even if you feel like it's obvious. Some people have some blind spots, but still, you should never assume someone can read your mind. So we're really, if you can imagine, we're in the dark, with a stick trying to figure life out and try and figure our partner out. And when someone tells us what they want and doesn't expect us to read their mind, it's like someone's turned the light on and now they can see where to go, and it's so helpful. It's a huge game changer in situations. All right, let's end with one more Reddit question that has a bit of a backstory. So it's a 21-year-old female and a 21-year-old male. And the title of this Reddit question is, I regret bringing my boyfriend on vacation. And the backstory to this one is, not using a throwaway because I hope he sees this, my boyfriend and I have been on a few vacations together in our almost 2-year-long relationship, and he's gotten worse each time. Even when he commits to vacations, he always ends up wanting back out right before them. A little context. I'm pretty sure my boyfriend has social anxiety because he doesn't do well in crowds and has a very poor self-image, even though no part of him looks ugly or anything bad. It seems like this recent vacation that we're on is just the worst one yet. He doesn't want to do anything with me because it doesn't sound fun. He's brought his PS4 to play, has mostly been in the room, and said I can do the things I want, but he doesn't want to. He apparently didn't want to come here in the first place, even though he agreed to it, until the day before we went. I'm just feeling so defeated. Am I just not as important to him as much as he's important to me? It just breaks my heart that I was so excited for this trip, and I feel like it's ruining it. I feel like he's ruining it. I don't know what to do. So let's say you had a friend who went through the situation and they're like, I know you go to these Twitter spaces and you learn these relationship skills. Please help me. How would you go about helping your friend who's been through this? Does anyone want to take a guess at how they would try and help someone in a situation like this? It's a tough one. It's a tough one. There's a lot of uncomfortable feelings here. There's a lot of things that maybe don't make sense when you initially read the story. Space.
Yeah, so I see this a fair amount in kind of a lot of the clinical work I do, in that there's, I mean, the old adage of the best predictor of the future is your past, right? So if something happens for the first time and it's really unusual, you weren't expecting it, it was outside the norm, it's like, feel that reaction, understand the reaction, have the reaction, right? It's totally normal, totally fine to have. But it looks like this has happened at least once, maybe even twice before. And so there's certainly a little bit of a pattern. Something like a vacation is a pretty big deal, right? Because there's money involved and time and planning. as well. So I guess, certainly there's a pretty good opportunity, I think, for communication skills. So kind of, what are your needs? What are my needs? What does a fun time when you're not working look like? What does relaxation look like? What's most important when you go on a vacation, whatever that means to you? So I think there's just, I think some real opportunities that are currently being missed, but the good news is there's opportunities moving forward that, hey, we've really missed the mark, both of us, because I've planned it and you've agreed to it and we've both been kind of miserable. And so, where do we want to go from here? And so that would be probably where I would start in terms of being an opportunity to really kind of talk more openly about needs, wants, desires, because this is, I think, maybe a iceberg, right? This is the tip that's outside the water because it's easy to see. My gosh, he did that. You kidding me? But underneath on the day-to-day interactions, there's probably quite a bit of, once again, missed communication or missed opportunities where I'm wanting pasta and you want spaghetti. They're the same thing, but my kids, they think they're very different. Like if I say pasta, I bring spaghetti. It's a big deal. Like there's conflict going on in the kitchen. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
That's so funny. Yes, like words matter for sure. Thank you. That was a really thorough and good summary of the situation. I appreciate it. There's a lot that people can take away from what you said. Thank you. And it comes from so much experience that you've seen with clients and you work through it with them. So this is very real good advice that's been put to practice. So thank you for sharing that with everyone today. And absolutely. So if we think about it in the sense of the vulnerability topic that we have today, exactly as Space Traveler said, this had happened actually 3 times, it said in this story. So this isn't the first time this is happening. This isn't the second time. This is now the 3rd time. And so let's say the first time they went on a trip, she notices that he's not having a good time. He wants to stay in the room a lot. Initially she wants to go out. She's like, you wanted to be here, like what's going on? So they, would really have to unpack the communication skills and figure out what is the heart of the situation. Where are the differences? How can they figure this out together? Let's say that happened after the first time. Now the next time that, the girl in the situation wants to travel, she should remember that, this is something that, was uncomfortable for her partner in the past, and that she definitely wants to make sure that she's on the same page as him, even more than normal, because now she realizes he had a big reaction to it last time. So it's really important that, whenever you want to plan the next holiday, you address these things in detail. Now, let's say even the first time or the second time, the man in this situation, does have social anxiety. Let's say, we don't know for sure, but let's say he does, and he really doesn't like holidays. He loves staycations. Let's say that's his thing, and he really loves his partner. He wants to make her happy. So, and maybe like anytime he expresses something negative, she gets really mad. They get into like a 10-hour like discussion that doesn't end about why he needs to change his mind, and the only option he's left with is to agree. Then maybe he thinks, and he might think like, oh, why shouldn't I like vacations? I'm meant to like vacations, and like, I'll just say yes and avoid all of that conflict, and I'll just smile and go with it. And then he gets to the holiday, and usually right the day before is when he freaks out the most, and he doesn't want to go, and he wants to change the plans. And so to me, that really communicates that he's hidden his negative feelings for a whole while. For many reasons, maybe, but it's important that he's been hiding them. And so the quicker you can express negative feelings with your partner and be vulnerable and have them create a safe environment. So if he can, if we could work with this person, if I was to give this person advice and, we needed to figure out how he can communicate, we would figure out what he wants ideally. And then we would see kind of, what she wants, what he thinks she wants, and then be like, look, I'm feeling some negative emotions that I want to share with you. Can I share it with you at this time? It'll take about 20 minutes. I just need you to listen without interruption, and just be open to talking about it, and making me feel like I have an option, to say no or to figure out some other way. That would mean a lot to me. And then she could respond, hopefully making a safe environment for him and saying, okay, I can listen uninterrupted for 20 minutes. That's fine. And then listen that, he wanted to feel like he had options, and try and make that possible. Or just, whatever they need, communicating it and not letting these negative emotions, build up just to make it easier. Because as you've noticed in a lot of the conversations we have throughout the weeks with different skills that we cover, usually in the short term, it's harder to have these hard conversations, but in the long run, it's much better because your relationship is a lot healthier. Or if you're in the dating phase and you realize someone is really not able to make a safe space for you when you're being vulnerable, or doesn't care about, when you're feeling uncomfortable, you can decide if someone is high quality for you, or if you're better with someone else that does treat you better, if you're in that dating phase. So it can really help you in the long run either end up with a better quality person or improve your current relationship to make your relationship higher quality and level up. So please do the hard work of, saying the scary things that are hard to say when you feel not good about something, because then you have a chance to work on it and really improve the situation. And when you don't talk about it, it's very easy to end up in a situation like this where now you've had 3 trips together and, she's not enjoyed these trips with him. And, she's really at kind of breaking point at the moment, doesn't know what to do, feels so confused, doesn't feel loved. I think at one point she was saying, I'm just, am I just not important to him as much as he's important to me? Like, this is really manifesting into much bigger things that now we would have to address if we were coming in at this point, rather than if they could address it at the very beginning. So, welcome, Ballistic. We're just wrapping up, but thank you for coming. We were talking about vulnerability and how it's really important to address things as quickly as possible. And Andrea, I see you too. Awesome to see you guys here. Yeah, it's really important to say it. Maybe all right, I can come up with one other little one. I know we have some awesome people that have come in. So, okay, let's try this out with one more scenario. So this is another true story. 30-year-old female, 30-year-old male. I can't trust my partner after I found out he lied to me 2 years ago about his divorce not being finalized. I asked him to tell me about every girl he talks to now for the last 7 months, and he's been doing that all the time. But I see that it's affecting his work, and he is getting frustrated, and we don't know how to improve the situation. Is this normal? What do we do? So, she found out something that was kind of big and made her question everything from her past. Her solution to this so far has been, that she's allowed to ask him whenever she likes who he's talking to, specifically women, and he has to give every single detail about it. And his job, naturally involves being with other women sometimes. And so, what do you do with that? Does anyone want to jump in with this one and give any thoughts on how they might advise someone in this position? People are thinking. Oh, space.
Do you have any more context? Just a little bit more detail, or you want to flesh it out a bit?
Of course. Any specific questions I can answer.
So what's the general concern that he is working with women? Like, what's the concern there, or is there any history or issues going on?
Sure thing. So a bit more context is he broke up with his partner 2 years ago, and he ended up falling for someone 7 months after that they broke up, and they were dating, and she asked him, like, are you divorced? And he looked in her eyes and said yes. And they were still finalizing the divorce. They did get a divorce. There was no issue there. But he felt, really scared to tell her in the moment that it was being finalized. And so technically he's still married, but, they completely, fully separated and had no contact. Him and his wife had no contact with each other for the last 7 months. And that's when he first met her. So he got really scared. He chose to lie. And, I see a request to speak. I'm going to just approve that. So that's a bit of context there. And then now his job is, working as a bodyguard. And sometimes that involves, bodyguarding women. And that's purely his job. He's professional. He hasn't done anything inappropriate at any point, in his relationship the last 2 years. But, sometimes he does have to interact with women, and, just, in the industry of sometimes where, he can work, depending on the person that he has to protect, he can't control if they're a bit flirty towards him or all sorts of things. Like, obviously there's things he can do to, not show any interest on his side and be very, professional about it. But sometimes, these women will have to text him, to be able, so he can do his job because they're his clients. So those messages may come up on his phone and, throughout the day. And, he wouldn't need to travel abroad sometimes to different countries or, far off states and, do this for maybe like 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. And, she will, ask him a few times a day how his day's going, who he's talking to. And he's very transparent. He does answer her. But obviously, as you can imagine, being trained as a bodyguard, you're trained to give minimal information to people, and for security reasons and things like that. So he's really training himself to really just be as transparent as possible. But they've tried that for the last 7 months, and their situation hasn't really improved. She's still, sometimes like he will show all the text messages, and she will just say, well, I don't know. This you could still be lying. This could be just like the other time when you lied to me 7 months ago. And so she can throw it back in his face, even though he's shown proof that there's nothing there. So, and then they can get into long text arguments, and it can last a long period of time, like longer than a day, and it can actually distract him because he cares about her so deeply. He can it can affect his work as well. So then he might not respond for a few hours because he's so overwhelmed with dealing with her and trying to be so aware to take care, like do his job properly. So I know it was a lot more context than you asked for, but what do you guys think? They haven't improved the situation in 7 months. What do we do?
I was like, is this like your sister or something, or is this you? Like you get just getting down to details there.
All the details with that one. This is someone that I do know, but I'm not disclosing who they are.
So what we can I think ascertain is that the reaction of the partner seems to not be in line 7 months later to the current situation. Like having a strong emotional reaction to the fact you've lied to me, yes, that makes total sense. But now 7 months later, this strong reaction to nothing kind of going on, because there's that transparency. You can see my text. I'm going to get back to you, that kind of stuff. So that would suggest that there's perhaps some areas of vulnerability, insecurity, issues, past trauma in the partner's past. So that might be an area where she might not be open to hearing that feedback, but that would be, if I was hearing this from a patient, that would be one of the things I'd be curious about as well, because once again, we're trying to make sure it all makes sense, and her reaction doesn't kind of make sense anymore.
That makes sense. Yes, this strong reaction could be linked to something from this person's past. Maybe they were both not faithful before this. Who knows? So their history, or maybe she, maybe she's lied to people, and she's like, well, I can't tell, when other people lie because I lied to people too, and maybe this is just even more complicated than we even know. Or maybe when he lied to her, he looked her in the eyes and told the lie, and so she's like, well, how am I supposed to decipher what the truth is? So like one of the ideas I could have with something like this is, maybe creating a new way to communicate when someone's telling the truth. If they really can't tell, when if I'm speaking to you and I'm telling you the truth, and I can do the same thing when I'm lying, then it's very hard for someone to be able to decipher which one is the truth, which one is the lie. So if there was a one-off lie and you're really trying to change things, maybe there can be some sort of indicator that you can establish that you're telling the truth. For example, maybe if I hold my partner's hand and now look into my partner's eyes and say, I'm telling you the truth, and say what it is, that could now be a new thing that we introduce that could establish what truth looks like. Or, when something's uncomfortable, so wrapping it right around to vulnerability. When something is hard and you're having a difficult reaction to something, at one point, this is another very specific example, but, because, she was having a lot of reactions to when he would express that, yes, he's talking to this girl for this reason, and, would give her all the information, that was, quite exhausting, because it would take a very long time for her to, feel safe, or at the end, she'll just think he's, still maybe hiding something or not telling the truth. And so sometimes, to avoid these uncomfortable conversations, he would say they instead of she when he's describing what's happened in his day. And so something like that is something that would trigger her more, because she sees him trying to avoid a situation. And, she's like, oh, you must be hiding even more than that if you can't even tell me, So he's trying to, avoid, these negative interactions, which makes sense for someone because it's, not a pleasant situation, but it's actually in the long run, creating more like reason to distrust, even though there's not really a reason to distrust. He's just being avoidant. So, it's making those difficult decisions to still face the truth. And, even if, he really wanted to write they, to avoid conflict, even if he wrote down, or even if he, told her, and he could express with his, facial reactions or words that, I really did want to write they to avoid conflict, but, I'm choosing to be like very honest and transparent and keep that with you. And so I'm going to say she, I'm going to write she. And it's really hard for me to do that because I know this results in 3 hours of conflict between us, which is hard. But I'm choosing to go through that because I love you and I'm trying to regain your trust back. So, when it's difficult, those are the most important times to be honest and transparent, because that's, some of the ways that people can feel trust the most. And when you're feeling vulnerable, if someone can be there for you when you're feeling vulnerable, that's one of the biggest ways sometimes someone can feel loved. They made me feel safe when I was feeling vulnerable. And, for this girl in this situation, she is feeling very vulnerable because she doesn't know what the truth is anymore when her partner says things, and that's very scary. And so, maybe she could have not asked to be, to know who he's messaging at all times. Maybe she could have said instead, this is very disappointing. Um, I need some time to process it. I need a day to process it. And then comes back and, he apologizes and she accepts the apology, but she's still upset. So there's still, if there's still a lot of negative emotion, and she's just brushing it off as that now it's okay, that's also going to create conflict on her end. So it's important to realize that both people, when they're, feeling these negative emotions or experiences, it's good to communicate that. So it's actually a good thing that she was able to say, look, I don't feel safe. I need to know who you're talking to, because at least on her end, she's able to communicate that she's still not okay with this. So he's not just going to pretend like everything's fine because he doesn't know. He knows there's something wrong, which on her end, that's a good thing that she's been able to communicate that she's not okay. And on his end, he needs to kind of like figure out what he can do to kind of build that trust, and what is like one thing that he can do that would be most helpful for her to feel trust. And potentially one thing could be, instead of her having to ask, how is your day? What girls are you speaking to at the moment? He can just, be really proactive about that for a while and say, as soon as a girl messages him, he can be like, hey, this person messaged me. I wanted to share it with you. Maybe sends like, transparent screenshots of what's going on. And, she won't even need to ask. She sees that that's, happening. He's initiating it. He's being so transparent and honest. And maybe that's something that will make her feel loved. But we need to ask her specifically, what in her past, just like Space Traveler said, is kind of contributing to these very strong feelings, if she knows the source of them. And what does she need right now? Let's boil it down to one action. Make it really simple. What's one thing you can do right now that's going to help you feel like you can trust him more? No matter what it is, just let me know. And, for him to show that he cares and he's really working on this, to be able to demonstrate that. And, what is something she can do for him that, one behavior she can do for him that he would really appreciate, because, there's two people in this relationship. So that could be a very good starting point of, making the situation better and grow to the next level, and not be stuck for 7 months, just trying to navigate this and not really seeing any growth. So all of it usually boils down to, being vulnerable, having those difficult conversations. Even if we really trace it back to the very, very beginning where he lied because he didn't want to lose the girl. And so it was very uncomfortable. He had a lot of negative feelings when she asked him, are you still married? And he chose to lie and take the easy option out and avoid, having that tough conversation with her, which is, what triggered all of this. So if in that moment the guy in the situation was able to be vulnerable and, explain it just as it was, she could have, decided what she wanted to do with that. And yes, it's scary, and yes, it's uncomfortable. But it would have been really helpful for them to address it then than have to go through 7 months of this. Like 7 months is a really long time, and who knows how long it's going to take for them to be able to, get to a place of trust again. Our actions can really have a lot of impact. So just keep that in mind. This is just, these stories that we tell and we go through and we practice these skills are really good for just reminding us that in the short term, it's difficult to be vulnerable. And, our partner may not, or whoever we're dating may not have a good reaction, but that's okay. It's better to be vulnerable and say it than, have it build up and come out in a much worse way in the long run. In the long run, you want to choose to be happy, not in the short term. So if you're ever confused about anything, or you're at like a turning point, or you're like, what do I do? I'm like a resource that you can use. You can always DM me and be like, hey, this is the situation. What do I do? Or what are your thoughts? and I'm more than happy to do that. And the more sessions like this that you come to or you listen the recording to, the more these skills will work hand in hand with each other and make more sense. So hopefully that was helpful. Does anyone have any questions or any stories or any comments at all that they want to share? This is a really good time to kind of bring that up. So I'll just give you guys the floor if you guys want to say anything. Oh, I'm just talking to myself here and it was muted. Thank you for all the hearts and the thumbs up. I want to do something a little different at the end, right before we wrap up. I want to ask you guys, is there any topic at all that you would find helpful for me to cover next week? Because I want to kind of meet you guys where you're at. If there's anything you're curious about, any situation at all, or any like skill that you think would be valuable for us to cover, this is a really great time to just speak up. Or Space Traveler, if there's anything you've noticed from the clients that you've helped that you feel like is reoccurring, would be something really good for people to just hear at least once, feel free to share it. I'll don't worry, I'll definitely come up with stuff, but I want to make sure I'm tailoring it to the audience that we have in these spaces. So I'll give you a moment to think about it, and yeah, feel free to unmute or request to speak, and let me know.
I don't really know. It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there, but I'll just say, and this is like pretty easily spoken, but that's why I like trust is it's really important. It's really important to just like transparency too. I don't know. I've put myself in that situation too, where I've been like chose to be honest about shit, and then I could have totally been the opposite way, been like not said anything, but then like it just kept kicking me in the ass, But I was like, well, hey, at least I was honest, right? So I don't know. It's tough, but it's definitely being honest and transparent with people is really important,
Yes. Oh my gosh, trust. Trust is a whole topic in itself, and it's so important. It's one of the very core things in a relationship. So I think trust is actually a really good one to unpack further. Like what creates trust? What do you do when you are being honest repeatedly and it's like like you said, like kicking you in the butt? Like what are you doing wrong? Or should you have said it at a different time? Or all sorts of things. So definitely a really core topic that we can cover. I wrote it down. Next week we're gonna uncover some skills on trust for sure, and how trust is built, and all the things related to it. So thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. And definitely, like, if you want to come on board and share some stories, you would be perfect for it. And yeah, thank you all. Thanks for coming. And I wish you all, like every week, the love life of your dreams, and have an amazing week. I'll see you guys later.